I'm not gonna make that decision right now. I think whoever minds it, it'll be tough. You know, there's a lot of like work that needs to be put in up there. For everything, equipment, mining claims, blah, blah, camp, he wants 15 million. We can't afford it.
A waitress had no idea that serving breakfast to a rugged gold miner would lead to tears, but not of sorrow. A simple act, a folded note on a diner check left her trembling, her world forever changed. Let us uncover the shocking reason why a waitress fighting to make ends meet found hope in the most unexpected of places, and how one small gesture turned her life upside down. The note that sparked a wave of kindness. That day, she finished her shift with a lighter heart. She carried the note in her pocket, touching it every so often to reassure herself it was real. The tip went toward bills, groceries, and a little extra for her kids. But the words on that paper stayed with her long after the money was spent. Little did she know, the note held more than kind words. It carried a secret that would soon upend everything she thought she knew about her life. In the weeks that followed, her story spread. Regulars asked about it, word got around town, and soon the diner was busier than ever. People came in not just for the food, but for a chance to meet the waitress who'd touched Parker Schnabel's heart. She took it all in stride, still pouring coffee and balancing plates with the same steady grace. Parker's note was more than a thank you. It was a spark, a ripple that grew into a wave, reminding everyone who heard the story that small acts of kindness could have a big impact. And for her, it was proof that even in the toughest times, a little light could shine through. She often thought back to that day. She wondered what had compelled Parker to write those words or leave that tip. Maybe it was just a moment of gratitude, or maybe he saw something in her, a reflection of his own struggles, his own determination to keep going no matter how hard life got. The diner continued to thrive, and her life, while still far from easy, felt a little brighter. She found herself looking for ways to pay the kindness forward. Sometimes it was as simple as slipping an extra cookie into a child's to-go bag or covering the cost of a meal for someone who looked like they needed a break. Those small gestures reminded her of the note, of the way a single act could ripple outward. The note itself stayed with her. She kept it tucked safely in a small box at home, along with a few other cherished mementos. On difficult days, when the weight of the world felt too heavy, she would take it out, read it, and remember that moment when everything changed. It was a reminder that she mattered, that her kindness and hard work didn't go unnoticed. Years passed, and the story of Parker Schnabel and the waitress who touched his heart became a local legend. Newcomers to the town would ask about it, and the regulars would retell it with pride as though they'd been part of something special, and in a way they had. The story wasn't just about her or Parker, it was about the power of connection, the importance of seeing and valuing one another. For her, life moved on. Her kids grew up, the bills kept coming, and the diner remained a constant in her world. But she never forgot that day, that note, that moment when a simple gesture changed everything. It became a cornerstone of her life, a reminder to keep believing in the goodness of people, no matter how hard things got. As for Parker, he probably never knew the full impact of his actions. To him, it might have been just another meal, another stop on a long journey. But to her, it was a turning point, a beacon of hope in a world that often felt overwhelming. The diner was winding down after the morning rush, a slower hum settling over the room as most of the tables cleared out. Plates stacked neatly, floors freshly swept, and the faint smell of coffee lingering in the air, she moved through her routine like clockwork. She didn't mind the quiet moments. They gave her time to catch her breath. The morning hustle was no joke, but now the emptiness felt like a relief. In her usual spot by the counter, she didn't think much of the tall man in the corner booth. Sure, he looked vaguely familiar, something about the rugged jacket and confident posture, but she had no time to piece it together. Refilling ketchup bottles and wiping down menus came first. The man, she later learned, was Parker Schnabel, but that didn't mean anything to her in the moment. He was just another customer, one of many she'd served that day. By the time the man finished his breakfast and slid his hood up, her mind was on the next task. She assumed he'd pay, leave, and disappear into the world like everyone else. People come and go. It's the nature of the job. Clearing his table, she found the check folded neatly, but something scribbled on the edge caught her eye. Thinking it was just another customer note about a missing fork or undercooked eggs, she almost brushed it off. Instead, curiosity made her pause. Her fingers unfolded the note. Her brow furrowed as she read the words scrawled across the paper. "Thank you for your kindness and hard work. Never give up on your dreams." The words felt personal, heavier than the usual pleasantries customers left. Her eyes shifted downward, catching the sight of the crisp bills tucked beneath the note. Counting them once, then twice, she almost dropped them in disbelief. The tip was far beyond anything she'd ever seen. For a second, everything around her faded. The clatter of dishes, the quiet conversations, even the hum of the coffee machine in the background, it all became distant noise. Her chest tightened, tears threatening to spill over. It wasn't just the money, though heaven knows it would help. Rent was looming. The fridge needed stocking, and her kids' school supplies weren't going to buy themselves. But more than the cash, it was the acknowledgement. Someone had noticed her, truly seen her, and appreciated her work. Her co-workers noticed her standing still, clutching the note and bills with trembling hands. A few rushed over, concerned something was wrong. When she showed them the note, they all fell silent. Whispers of Parker Schnabel made their way around the room as the reality of the moment sunk in. Nobody knew what to say. It wasn't every day that a waitress in a small-town diner became part of a story worth retelling. The note stayed in her pocket, but its impact was just starting to spread. The gold miner's ripple effect. Word spread fast. At first, she tried to keep it to herself, but small towns have a way of amplifying secrets. Customers started coming in, curious to see the waitress who'd been tipped by the gold miner. Strangers shared their own Parker Schnabel stories, some true and others likely embellished, adding to the growing legend. The diner buzzed with a different kind of energy in the days that followed, like everyone was holding on to a slice of her good fortune. The tip didn't erase her struggles. The bills still came, the shifts were just as long, and her feet ached the same way they did every night. But something inside her had shifted. She walked with her head a little higher, her smile a little brighter. The note stayed tucked in her apron pocket, a quiet reminder that her efforts hadn't gone unnoticed. At home, she read the words aloud to her kids, their faces lighting up as they realized how special this was. For once, she didn't feel invisible. Parker Schnabel's gesture didn't just stop with her, it rippled outward. Customers began leaving slightly larger tips, taking the extra moment to thank their servers sincerely. Regulars made an effort to learn the names of the staff who served them week after week. Even strangers, inspired by her story, started to act a little kinder. Sometimes the smallest acts of generosity can set off a chain reaction far bigger than anyone expects. For her, that moment wasn't just a story to tell. It became a cornerstone in her life, a reminder that even in the grind of everyday struggles, someone might recognize the effort you're putting in. Life didn't magically become easier, but it felt a little more bearable knowing that hard work doesn't always go unseen. Meanwhile, Parker Schnabel likely moved on to the next town, the next adventure. His life, rooted in the rugged terrain of Alaska's goldfields, was a far cry from her small-town routine. Born into a family of miners, Parker's days were filled with challenges and rewards that few could understand. From a young age, he'd learned the value of hard work, patience, and persistence. Those lessons shaped the man who would leave a waitress a life-changing tip without a second thought. Their paths crossed for only a brief moment, but that moment left an indelible mark on her life and the lives of those around her. It was a reminder that sometimes the most ordinary encounters can carry the most extraordinary meaning. Her life had always been one of quiet perseverance. The long hours at the diner were just part of her day. Mornings began early, often before the sun was fully up, as she made breakfast for her 2 children and prepared them for school. Their small house with its creaky floors and chipped paint wasn't much, but it was home. The kids were her world, and every plate of eggs or cup of coffee she served was another step toward keeping that world stable. The daily grind had become second nature to her. She had perfected the balance of efficiency and warmth, knowing how to keep the diner's regulars happy while handling the endless stream of tourists who passed through. But it wasn't easy. The long hours on her feet left her exhausted, and the pay often felt like a slap in the face for the effort she put in. Still, she kept going. Quitting wasn't an option. Her kids depended on her. That's why Parker's note meant so much. It wasn't just about the money, though the tip would go a long way toward easing her financial worries. It was the recognition, the feeling that someone had truly seen her. She often felt like a ghost, blending into the background as she worked. Customers rarely looked her in the eye, let alone offered words of encouragement, but Parker's gesture was different. It was a beacon of hope in the monotony of her life. In the days that followed, she found herself reflecting on the note and what it represented. She thought about her dreams, the ones she'd put on hold for so long. As a young girl, she had wanted to be a teacher, inspired by the kind and patient educators who had guided her through school. But life had taken a different turn. A surprise pregnancy in her early 20s had shifted her priorities, and the dream of teaching was replaced by the reality of raising 2 kids on her own. The note reignited something in her, a spark she hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about believing in the possibility of something better. She began to research online courses during her breaks at the diner, scribbling notes on napkins and piecing together a plan. It wasn't going to be easy, but the idea of working toward her dream gave her a new sense of purpose. Her kids noticed the change in her. She smiled more, laughed more, and seemed lighter, as though the weight of the world had lifted just a little. They didn't fully understand what had happened that day at the diner, but they could see its effects. Her daughter, a bright-eyed 10-year-old with a love of drawing, started leaving her own notes for her, little messages of encouragement taped to the fridge or tucked into her purse. Her son, who was 7 and full of questions about the world, asked if they could visit Alaska one day to see where Parker came from. The idea made her laugh, but it also planted a seed of possibility in her mind. As the weeks turned into months, the story of Parker's generous tip continued to ripple through the town. The diner became a sort of unofficial landmark, with visitors stopping by to ask about her and the famous gold miner. The attention was overwhelming at times, but it also brought in more business. The diner's owner, a gruff but kind-hearted man named Joe, joked that Parker had done more for their sales than any marketing campaign ever could. She remained humble through it all. She didn't want to be defined by that one moment, as life-changing as it was. For her, the real story was in what came after, the small but significant ways she began to take control of her life. She enrolled in an online teaching program, carving out time to study after her shifts and once the kids were asleep. It was exhausting, but it felt worthwhile. Each completed assignment was a step closer to her goal. That small moment was the start of a bigger change in her life. Maria's triumph. Her co-workers rallied around her, offering support and encouragement. They covered shifts when she needed extra time to study and celebrated her milestones with quiet pride. The camaraderie among the diner staff deepened, a bond forged through shared struggles and the shared joy of seeing one of their own strive for something more. As for Parker, he likely had no idea of the impact his gesture had made. For him, it was probably a simple act of kindness, a way to acknowledge someone's hard work and brighten their day, but for her, it was so much more. It was a turning point, a reminder that even in the grind of everyday life, moments of grace and generosity could make all the difference. Her journey wasn't without its challenges. There were nights when the weight of it all felt overwhelming, when the bills piled up faster than she could pay them, and the demands of work and school seemed impossible to juggle. But she kept going, fueled by the memory of that note and the belief that her dreams were worth pursuing. She wasn't just working for her kids anymore, she was working for herself too. In time, Maria completed her teaching program and earned her certification. The day she received her diploma in the mail, she held it up for her kids to see, tears streaming down her face. It was a moment of triumph, a testament to her resilience and determination. She found a job at a local elementary school where she quickly became a favorite among students and staff alike. Her classroom was a place of warmth and encouragement, a reflection of the kindness that had once been shown to her. Looking back, Maria often thought about that day at the diner and the man who had left her a note that changed everything. She never had the chance to thank him in person, but she hoped he knew the difference he had made. His gesture had set off a chain of events that transformed her life and inspired countless others. Maria's story became a reminder that acts of kindness, no matter how small, have the power to create ripples that extend far beyond what we can see. In the end, it wasn't just about the money or the note, it was about the hope and possibility they represented. And for Maria, that made all the difference. Parker Schnabel, a teenager barely old enough to drive, stood out in ways most couldn't even imagine. While his peers were gearing up for college or their first jobs, Parker took a path few would dare to tread. Instead of classrooms and textbooks, he chose heavy machinery and mining dirt, trading conventional education for the hard lessons of gold mining. It wasn't just any decision, it was a bold gamble with everything on the line. At 16 years old, Parker didn't just dream big, he acted on those dreams. With money most would use for tuition, he poured it all into reviving the family's big nugget mine. Imagine that, a kid still learning to shave, leading a team of seasoned miners twice his age. It sounded crazy to outsiders. Could this teenager really manage the risks, setbacks, and stress of such a high-stakes operation? Many doubted him. But Parker wasn't one to let skepticism slow him down. From the beginning, he showed grit that would put even seasoned miners to shame. Handling broken-down equipment, navigating unpredictable weather, and making game-changing decisions became his daily routine. He wasn't just following in his grandfather's footsteps, he was creating his own path. Parker brought fresh ideas to the table, blending his family's time-tested methods with innovative strategies. He understood that mining, like the rest of the world, needed to evolve, and he wasn't afraid to be the one leading that charge. His hard work didn't go unnoticed. By his late teens, Parker had already proven himself a capable leader and miner. The turning point came in 2010 when the Discovery Channel's Gold Rush hit the airwaves. The show followed miners risking it all in search of gold, and Parker's story stood out from the start. A teenager running a gold mine? It was almost too wild to believe. Yet week after week, viewers saw the reality of his life. The long hours, the crushing failures, and the sweet taste of success when things finally paid off. In his first season on the show, Parker's team pulled in over 1,000 ounces of gold. For a rookie operation, that was huge. But it was only the beginning. Over the next few years, he took bigger risks and tackled larger operations, eventually extracting more than 40,000 ounces of gold before hitting his 20s. That's tens of millions of dollars in shiny, precious metal. But for Parker, the gold was just part of the story. Mining wasn't just about striking it rich. It was about strategy, problem solving, and perseverance. Parker treated the process like a science, constantly looking for ways to improve. He analyzed the land, invested in better equipment, and adopted new technologies to stay ahead of the curve. While others clung to old methods, Parker's adaptability became his secret weapon. Of course, the journey wasn't without its fair share of hurdles. Mining is an unforgiving business even for seasoned professionals. Parker faced everything from catastrophic equipment failures to devastating weather conditions that wiped out months of work. There were moments when it seemed like everything might collapse, but Parker refused to give up. Every setback became a lesson, every failure a stepping stone towards success. While his professional life soared, his personal life sometimes took a back seat. Mining demands everything: time, energy, focus. For a while, he was in a relationship with Abby, an Australian veterinary nurse who appeared on Gold Rush. Their time together was sweet, but the intense pressures of Parker's world made it hard to keep the relationship afloat. In the end, they parted ways, and Parker, true to form, threw himself back into his work. Despite his fame and fortune, Parker remained grounded. Flashy cars and extravagant vacations weren't his style. Instead, he reinvested his earnings into his mining operations. For him, the real reward wasn't the money, but the thrill of the hunt, the satisfaction of turning dirt into gold. Over the years, Parker's reputation as one of the most successful miners of his generation continued to grow. His story inspired countless young people, showing them that success isn't about following the usual rules. It's about taking risks, working hard, and staying relentless, even when the odds seem stacked against you. Today, Parker is still at it, expanding his operations and exploring new frontiers. Whether it's in Alaska, South America, or beyond, if there's gold to be found, you can bet he's thinking about it. From the ambitious teenager running the Big Nugget mine to the seasoned professional he is now, Parker's journey proves that success doesn't come easy. It takes guts, smarts, and an unshakable drive to keep going no matter what. Does Parker's relentless pursuit of gold symbolize ambition or greed? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the conversation.